Yesterday, the Oversight Project had their day in the sun in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee about Joe Biden, or maybe more accurately, Biden staffers' use of the Autopen. Here's testimony from Theo Wold, a member of the Oversight Project.
The Oversight Project, of which I am a board member, has discovered that the Biden White House deployed an Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to pardons, prison commutations, executive orders, and presidential proclamations. The Oversight Project's research has found that the Biden White House first deployed the Autopen to affix President Biden's signature to a proclamation on day 5 of his administration, and that there were at least 3 different Autopen signatures in use throughout President Biden's tenure in the White House. In June 2022, the Biden White House began deploying the Autopen to sign clemency warrants and executive orders. Autopen use skyrocketed from there. We found that of the 51 clemency warrants issued during the Biden presidency, over half, 32 in total, were signed with an Autopen. And these include some of the most controversial acts of clemency of the Biden presidency, including death row commutations and the preemptive pardons of members of the Biden family, Dr. Anthony Fauci, General Mark Milley, and more that were issued in the final days of the Biden presidency.
So, Mike Howell, take us through all that stuff that we learned yesterday. I see a very suited up Mike Howell right behind Theo as he was giving his testimony. So what did we learn?
It was great. I mean, Theo absolutely stole the show. So he was there to go over the findings of the Oversight Project, but also to take it to its real basic constitutional implications, that the Biden years were a huge constitutional disaster and a flagrant abuse, in that we didn't have a president. We had a president by committee by Autopen. And he was really walking the senators through the implications, particularly of the 25th Amendment. 1967, after JFK was assassinated, the fourth president in 100 years, with a couple incapacitated presidents in between, the country came up with an exact process to deal with an incapacitated president. And that's Section 4 of that amendment, too, where the VP and the cabinet could get together and vote and basically tell the Congress, hey, our president's incapacitated. And he basically walked the senators through how they avoided that like the absolute plague for political reasons, and that it was their preference to have an incapacitated president. And so I think he really got the attention of the Senate committee. I really appreciated Senator Hawley, who I think had the most meaningful part of the hearing when he, kind of said, well, what can we do as the Senate? And Theo walked him through the exact documents to go after, and then he committed to doing just that. And so we like to see positive actions and actually steps being taken from these hearings. As great as it is to have our findings discussed in that body and, on TV, we want to get to the bottom of this. And I think Hawley indicated some momentum behind the Senate doing just that.
Yeah, let's watch that clip now. Let's play that clip for our audience of Josh Hawley.
In the policy paper flow to the Oval Office, there should be a record of what documents are presented to the president when and when he gave his assent to the actions that are listed in those documents, whether it's a judicial nomination or it's a statutory response to Congress.
Well, I think the answer is we need to get those documents. And I just say to our friends in the media over here, you guys need to be asking for those documents, and we need to be asking for them, Mr. Chairman.
First off, I can't get enough of these videos. I mean, I like Theo. What he's talking about is really important. And then I like this Godfather vibe in the background I see going on. But he's not wrong. I mean, this is one of the greatest scandals in American history, potentially. So how do we go about getting those documents again?
Yeah, well, it's actually the easiest investigation of all time. And I've been yelling this for a while. I know we talked about interviewing Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson because they say they know, and so just go out and ask them and make them tell you. But another very easy layup, and this is Investigations 101, is there is a control document at the White House as to who is authorized to use the Autopen and for what, and then logs of when it is used. And so Theo, with his experience of working in the Trump White House and his deep knowledge of how paper moves throughout the White House, was kind of mapping that out to the Senate. And so that's what Hawley says he's going to do. And I hope that the Trump administration, who, by the way, doesn't even need the Senate to ask to put this stuff out there, will turn it over and make it public. And then we can kind of take another investigative step to say, all right, here's who had access. Now let's figure out if Biden actually told them to sign these things or was aware that they were being signed or had the capacity to sign them. And so, inch by inch, we'll get there. But the Senate doing anything is a big step.
Yeah, I want to take a look at Theo and Senator Ted Cruz because they did talk about exactly that. Who can sign them? How can they do it? Because we know that President Joe Biden, he was not the one really running things behind the show. Let's go ahead and take a look.
Mr. Wald, let me ask you as a legal matter, if there's a law that's passed both houses of Congress and it goes to the White House, and a staffer auto-pens signing that law without the president's authorization, is that law legally passed and signed into law?
No.
If an executive order is issued and a staffer auto-pens it without the president's authorization, is that executive order legally binding?
No.
And if a pardon is issued from the President of the United States and a staffer auto-pens it without the president's authorization, is that pardon legally binding?
No.
I think in that 30 seconds, Mike, you see the entire conversation that we have had about the Autopen thus far with you on the show. Hey, X happens, Y happens, Z happens. Is any of this legal? If this is the way that it happens, no. The answer is always no. So the ramifications of this, Mike, are massive.
Absolutely. And Senator Cruz really narrowed in on the key issue here. Like Democrats will say, and they weren't at the hearing, by the way, they ran away and didn't want to be there. But Democrats argue through their surrogates and media, well, Trump autopen things too, or someone, Thomas Jefferson had an early stage autopen. It's nothing to see here. But the issue is, one, the capacity, and two, the awareness. Biden didn't have either. And so what Senator Cruz is really keying in on is the most important issue. It is about whether Biden actually directed it or was able to direct it. And if he's not, there's no question those things are legally insufficient. And so that's where this investigation has always been pointed, despite the trying to confuse things by the left and the smoke and mirrors they throw up. That's why they ran out of the hearing room after throwing a little hissy fit through Senator Durbin. Another reason is because guess who has a funky, no good, bad pardon? Senator Schiff, who's on that committee. And so he didn't want to be there because he could go to jail if he's prosecuted for the crimes he was pardoned for.
Oh, you could say that 3 times. Schiff could go to jail. I think there's a lot of people who'd be happy about that. I am happy about Cruz in that moment, by the way, when he gets in that voice, right? It's a Protestant preacher voice a little bit, and he's laying down some constitutional hammers. That's good times, good stuff. But speaking of, the president not being there, Ashley Moody had some thoughts about this. We should roll those. She really understood this problem that's been going on for a long time, where Democrats, she said, have been making a sport of hiding the health of the president.
Look, I mean, if you go back through our history, Senator, so Grover Cleveland, Wilson, FDR, JFK, President Johnson, President Biden, it's almost a Democrat sport to keep from the American people the health and acuity of the chief executive. They've been doing this for a long time, but this is of another level, especially as Mr. Spicer was mentioning, the complicity of the national media in obscuring this, but also that cabinet officers would go to the lengths of avoiding interacting with the chief executive because they were fearful that they would have to speak to his diminished capacity.
That's absolutely right. She nailed it. And Theo gave numerous examples of instances where that's happened. And I think there's a very important ideological difference behind all of that. Obviously, those are all political lies for sure, but it's because Democrats and the left believe in the power of the administrative state, not in the power of the president. So for them, it is completely acceptable to have a figurehead chief executive because in their mind, the power flows through the agencies, the regulators. Every other American with, 2 brain cells that can read the Constitution understands, no, that's not how it works. We vest all the executive power in one individual. So they need to be in charge of things. And this is basically the undercurrent of all of the legal battles we're having today and why President Trump's in court is because the left and the radical judges want to deny him the power of the presidency. To put it simply, the legal theory for the left was during the Biden years, you don't need a president to do things. And now during the Trump years, it is the president cannot do things. It is just flipping the Constitution on its head, and I think we all see it for what it's worth.
Yeah, and this is a really important point because throughout history, there have been times where a president is sick, a president is not well, And there are people who want to hide behind that and run with it, going back, a long ways. You could poke at the progressives because Woodrow Wilson's wife was famous for doing this even before Roosevelt. So this has always been a perennial problem in American history. What really concerns me, Mike, is that we're at a point at which people were acting as if we don't need a CEO. Right, the whole thing just runs. It's as if it was ripping down the veil of sort of the blob or the Borg, or just moving forward. No one needs to be told what to do because there's just this progressive line and everyone does it, as if there really is no boss. And it seems to me that the Trump presidency is in broad strokes is a reassertion of actual executive power within the context of American government.
That's absolutely right. And dare we say of democracy itself. The president's the only person in this country, besides the vice president, that every American votes across state lines. The whole country votes for the president. It's obviously not the case for senators and House members. And so it's the biggest expression of democratic intent in the country. And so to basically say we don't even need that individual to be the president is just turning democracy again with the Constitution completely on its head, which I think speaks to the psychological projection of the left, who for the last few years has been decrying the America First movement as an attack on democracy itself. I think that all comes from a deep place within the soul of the left, where they actually aren't even for democracy. They just appreciate it as a slogan.
Well, Mike, the last question. We hear all this. We want to be a part of this. We want to help. Where do we go from here? What's the next step?
Oh, so many steps. As I said, gallops, and we have gallops, not steps to take in the piece that came out on the Blaze. But there are things the Oversight Project is doing from the outside. We'll have some more updates on the ways the signature was utilized over the years. But it's really up to the people with the guns and badges now to compel testimony, to obtain, bank records, text messages. Think of what the January 6th committee did or any of the January 6th FBI investigations. I want to see those resources and tactics deployed at this problem. I want to see Jake Tapper and Alex Thompson under oath because, again, they say they know who was propping up the White House and who was running it, and they can't hide those sources from a grand jury. So I think a grand jury needs to be impaneled, and we can't just rely on Congress to hold hearings and talk about it. We need legal process.
This is when things start to get good. This is music to my ears. Mike Howell, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.